In the heart of Las Vegas, under the bright lights and the hum of slot machines, a crime of unimaginable scale was quietly being set into motion. The city, renowned for its glamour, high-stakes games, and high-profile personalities, became the setting for one of the most audacious heists in history. But this wasn't just another robbery. This was a story of manipulation, deceit, and love turned deadly. If you are new to this channel, kindly subscribe for more true stories like this. It started in 1993 with a young woman, Heather Tallchief. She had a bright future ahead, or at least, that's what it seemed. Little did she know, her life was about to be completely changed by a man who would pull her into a criminal plot so intricate, so daring, that it would take the FBI 12 years to catch up to them. A heist worth $3 million. A perfectly executed plan. A couple who vanished without a trace. But where did they go? How did they manage to evade the FBI for so long? Keep watching, because this is a tale of crime, love, and betrayal that still leaves us asking, what really happened? Heather Tallchief was born in 1972, and her life, from the start, was anything but ordinary. Raised in a broken home, she was exposed to chaos and instability from the very beginning. Her parents, teenage addicts themselves, struggled with alcohol and drugs. Heather's arrival into the world wasn't celebrated with joy. Instead, it was the result of a relationship clouded by neglect and dysfunction. From the time she could remember, Heather was caught in the whirlwind of her parents' troubled relationship. Arguments, fights, police showing up at their doorstep. As a toddler, she was already familiar with the sound of sirens, and before she even understood the meaning of the word family, she was torn between two parents who couldn't take care of her. The love she desperately needed was nowhere to be found. At a young age, Heather was forced to witness the destruction of her parents' relationship. They split when she was still a toddler, and her father took custody. But that didn't bring her peace. Living with him didn't offer any respite from the chaos. He was equally reckless and neglectful, unable to provide her with the love and care she desperately needed. With no real guidance, Heather wandered through her childhood years, always searching for something, or someone, to make her feel safe, loved, and worthy. But each time, she was left wanting more. In 1991, at the age of 19, Heather found herself in San Francisco, seeking a fresh start. She managed to get a job as a nursing assistant at a local clinic, caring for patients with AIDS. It was tough work, emotionally draining. Watching young people die at her hands, patients in their 20s, victims of a devastating disease, left Heather feeling empty, as if the world was closing in on her. She was overwhelmed by grief, feeling disconnected from the world around her. That's when Roberto Solace entered her life. A man who was everything Heather wasn't. He was older, mysterious, and exuded confidence. He knew exactly how to charm her, how to make her feel wanted and seen. But Roberto Solace wasn't just a man with charm, he was a career criminal. With a history of violent crime, Solace had been in and out of prison for most of his life. But he wasn't your typical thug. Solace had reinvented himself. He was a poet in prison, his writings gaining attention. But even behind bars, he still managed to control people, bending their wills to suit his needs. Heather, in her fragile state, fell prey to his manipulation. The more she got to know him, the deeper she sank into his web. What began as casual conversations turned into late-night talks about spirituality, mysticism, and, eventually, criminal plots. Heather was drawn to him, both emotionally and psychologically. Solace became her world, and she became his pawn. Solace wasn't content with small-time hustles. His ambitions were grander, his desires darker. Soon, he convinced Heather to join him in his schemes, and one night, he brought her along for a robbery. It was a small job, just a lockbox filled with $30,000, nothing compared to the heist that would follow, but it was the beginning. The adrenaline, the thrill of living on the edge, made Heather feel alive for the first time in years. The power of it all, getting away with something dangerous, gave her a rush she had never experienced. Solace saw that Heather was hooked, and he knew then that he could push her further into a world of crime, a world where he called the shots, and she followed his every command. It wasn't long before Solace set his sights on something much bigger, the armored truck heist. He knew Loomis, the company responsible for transporting millions of dollars between casinos in Las Vegas. It was a perfect target. And he knew just how to get inside. Heather. Solace pushed Heather to apply for a job at Loomis, knowing she had no experience but sensing that they were desperate to hire women for quotas. They hired her on the spot. But Heather had no idea what she was getting herself into. She was just a cog in Solace's master plan, a pawn in his game. As Heather worked her new job, transporting millions of dollars a day in cash, Solace started planning every detail. He followed her, studied the routes, and even instructed her on what to say. Heather was so deep into the job now, she had no idea she was already part of a bigger, dangerous game. October 1st, 1993. The day of the heist. Everything was in place. The van was loaded with $4 million, and Heather was ready to drive it, just like she always did. But something was off. Her co-workers noticed her shoes weren't her usual work boots. A small, seemingly insignificant detail, but one that didn't escape their attention. Heather ignored their concerns, pushing forward with the plan. She dropped her partners off at the casino and then drove away, pretending to get lost, pretending nothing was wrong. But she wasn't lost. She was running with $3 million in cash. When Heather didn't return, panic set in. Her partners called the office, then the police. But by the time they realized something was wrong, Heather and the money were already long gone. The FBI was called in, but Solace and Heather had already covered their tracks. They were on the move, living under fake identities, hiding in plain sight, and leaving nothing but confusion in their wake. The FBI's search was intense. They scoured every corner of Las Vegas. Every lead was followed, every angle examined. But no one could find Heather. No one could find Solace. They had vanished, leaving the FBI to pick up the pieces of their shattered investigation. But every day they were gone, the pressure grew. The media buzzed with reports, putting more eyes on the case. The trail was getting colder, but the FBI refused to give up. From Las Vegas to Denver, from Miami to the Caribbean, Solace and Heather were on the move, constantly changing their appearance, their identities, and their locations. They lived a life of constant fear and tension, but it was a life they had chosen. A life of luxury built on stolen money, and the threat of capture hanging over them like a sword. As the years passed, Heather began to change. She realized that the man who had once given her love and purpose was now controlling her, using her as a tool for his own needs. The love she thought she had found was nothing more than manipulation. One night, Heather found herself staring at her reflection in a mirror, a pregnant woman running from the law. The weight of her choices hit her like a ton of bricks. Was this the life she wanted for her child? Could she keep running forever? Heather realized she couldn't keep running. The guilt, the fear, the uncertainty, it was all too much. It was time to face the consequences. Time to end the madness. In 2005, Heather made a decision that shocked everyone. After 12 years on the run, she turned herself Indiana. Not for herself, but for her child. She walked into a federal courthouse, ready to face the music. In a court of law, Heather faced her crimes: robbery, conspiracy, and embezzlement. Her sentence: 5 years in prison, reduced because of her willingness to cooperate. But Solace was still out there, living freely and hiding in the shadows. Heather's journey didn't end with her sentence. Upon her release, she had to rebuild her life from scratch. A woman haunted by her past but determined to make amends, Heather was finally free from the chains of her past life. Solace remains at large, still wanted by the FBI. But Heather's story? It's a story of redemption. A story of facing the truth, no matter how difficult. If this story taught us anything, it's that crime may seem like the easy way out, but it always catches up. Justice, in the end, always finds a way. And if you're going through your own struggles, remember, you can always choose the right path. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Let us know your thoughts below. Do you think justice was served? Or is Solace still out there, waiting to make his next move?